Hey folks, it's us, podcasting wonderkins John Bishop and Lucas Southworth.
Although this is a podcast about cars, it is not age appropriate for the target demographic of these films, as we usually end up talking about the reproductive organs of Lightning McQueen.
Alright, now let's take a look under the hood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kachat. It's the only podcast brave enough to ask the question, what's up with... Wait, did Mater die? Wait, I'm Lucas Southworth.
And yes, I do believe Mater died. I'm John Bishop.
Folks, you know I hate messing with the intro. I get on John every time he does it, but it's worth it this week, I'd say.
Maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's Maybelline.
Maybe it is. Yeah, this is the one where Mater dies, and we're gonna get into that a lot. But yeah, we're doing it again. Episode 3, Salt Fever. So if right off the bat, I want to address that I expect the energy to be a little weird today, John. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Especially because, sure, we're talking about Mater's death,
sure.
but also I am holding a child right now, and he's trying to chew on my microphone as I speak into it.
Yeah, that'll do it. I was mostly referring to the fact that this is probably the closest we've ever recorded to episodes of the Kachat back to back, if I'd have to guess. Does that sound accurate to you?
I feel like we've done it before, but I couldn't say when, so maybe. Good chance.
Because I am pulling a bit of a magic trick. John, when you're listening to this, I am in Cincinnati. But folks, when you listen to this, I will be on the high seas taking a Disney cruise.
And Lucas, while you're listening to this, I am fighting a child who is just getting more and more excited about pulling on this microphone. And audience, while you're listening to this, I very much doubt that's the case.
Yeah.
Also, the volume knob he has just discovered, so I am... Man, this is a trip to listen to.
Yeah, I'm either probably pretty loud or pretty quiet to you, John, and I apologize for that. Hopefully you can hear me, period.
Yeah, Rory is very good at knobs, so I'm hearing you at both volumes at rapid fire.
Well, that's kind of fun. But yes, we just recorded the last episode yesterday, but we are recording this one and then probably the next episode after this one in a few days, because I'm going on vacation, folks. And I don't want to spoil things for next week, but we're also stopping by Disney parks, so I can see if I can't re-up my certification at Lightning McQueen Racing Academy while I'm there. I don't... Listen, I'll be surprised if any of the cars are on the cruise.
I would be shocked if they were, but at the same time, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it feels tonally, I'll say, dissonant to have the cars on the boat.
Now, what about this? What if the boat is a car boat?
Now that I would love, and I would book tickets immediately if the next Disney Cruise Line, they painted giant eyes on it.
Yep.
And a big mouth. So if you want more of my money, Disney Corporation, I've given it to you there. But just wanted to say that up front. We probably also don't have a ton of reader mail because, again, we recorded the last episode yesterday. But, yeah, Mater dies, so we should talk about the episode in which Mater dies. And there's other important stuff to talk about besides Mater dying in this episode.
Mm-hmm. We could also talk about what that sounds like, which is maitre d'.
Oh, okay. The phrase Mater die is like someone mispronouncing maitre d'. Okay.
Specifically, Mater.
Yeah. Mater would do that. and he would get sort of freaked out about it because he's like, Mater dies, but I'm Mater. It'd be a barrel of laughs. But yeah, we're going to spend a lot of this episode talking about the Grim Reaper who appears, so we should do some other stuff first, I imagine, similar to how we held off on last week's episode talking about the, demon creature. We should hold off talking about the demon creature again, I would say.
Mm-hmm. But I will say that you did say that there's a chance that we're going to get to a point where we talk about the thing immediately.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't do that.
Yes, but we're only 3 episodes in, John.
Yeah.
We gotta save that for later.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I imagine in the last episode of this, we will start talking about the wedding pretty quickly. And
That would make sense.
Mater's sister pretty quickly. So.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one entitled Salt Fever. Somehow, I would like to discuss how Mater and Lightning just end up in the salt flats,
Mm-hmm.
where there are top speed races going on. So, as Lightning describes it, it's not necessarily races against other people, it's a race against yourself to go as fast as possible. And there are a bunch of cars modified in different ways to race really, really fast, and Mater gets modified, and he does it, and he dies. And the Grim Reaper's there, and Mater tricks the Grim Reaper, known as the Speed Demon, and gets back into himself. And they're like, oh, what a barrel of laughs we've had today. We've certainly learned quite a bit.
Yep. That is very good, fast synopsis of this episode.
Which is
quicker than quick.
Is because this is the one about going fast.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. So let's get down into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the important fact that spawns this entire thing. Lightning's still kind of a dick.
Yeah, for sure, all the time.
All right. So you know how there's a stereotype of guys love to horseplay and like punch each other for fun?
Uh-huh.
Lightning's one of those guys. Because the whole thing behind that is guys like to horseplay because they like to be aggressive and they like to like show off. And that's what Mater has to deal with. Lightning just decides, hey, you know that thing I am a world-renowned athlete for? Let's do that right now. I'm going to race you, just typical vehicle, and I'm going to win, obviously, giving you an inferiority complex, and then driving you to do dangerous things just to feel a glimpse of what it's like to be me.
Yeah, it's like if you were buddies with like Usain Bolt, and Usain Bolt was just like, hey, I'll race you to the corner. And you're like, no, I really don't want to do that. For some fairly obvious reasons.
And then you want to, because it's not the first time, obviously.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where it's just, okay, I'll just cheat to see what that'll, and it doesn't do anything. Because Mater cheats, and it's a straightaway run, and then Lightning just destroys him, because of course he does.
Yeah, it was obvious, and that really feeds into Mater's decisions for the rest of the episode.
And if you don't believe us, he quotes Lightning several times while making dangerous choices.
Yeah, it's true. I do want to talk about, so as with all the episodes, because they're very short, they get into the action very quick by showing them driving on a road that quickly deteriorates into desert. Like, I just kind of want to talk about why they were on that road to begin with, why there is a road that just slowly ceases to exist, how they got there, etc.
I don't know if it's Texas or what, but I've seen like a road trip. It was probably in the video with Eddie Burback, and he's
where they go to every rainforest cafe in America. I'm familiar.
Yeah. And there's just a point in which they show the road they're driving on, and they're like going through this really flat land, and it's just, the road is just becoming a part of the desert. Like, the road is disappearing a bit because it's being consumed by sand.
Yeah, so like clearly these people need a way, the top speed racers need a way to get out to the salt flats. That's
Hmm.
what the road is for.
But
But like,
also, it just kind of disappears.
yeah, the road ceases. So it's not like it goes through it. So why were Lightning and Mater on that road to begin with? And I kind of want to get into, and again, I know the Grim Reaper was in this one. We'll get to it. But I kind of want to just get into like how they're navigating. Period. Do they have little GPSs? Like, does Lightning still have Hamilton from Cars 3 in there? Or
Or
like
does he have Hamilton to listen to while on this road trip?
another incredible question, John. Because like it gives me the vibe that they're just either like plotting it out, like doing a pre-planning, like a planning their route each day in the morning kind of vibe, or they're just kind of winging it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess, but like I don't know, man. Seems like it's not going well since you ended up in the desert. And they literally say, "Hey, what happened to the road?"
Yep.
After not driving on it for, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds.
And the answer is, of course, where we're going, you don't need no road.
Which is true, I guess. Where they end up, they don't need no road.
Mm-hmm. And where they end up is the Valley of Death.
Yeah, I don't know if it's explicitly Death Valley, but it feels like Death Valley if it's not explicitly Death Valley.
And, like, what better place for them to end up in the episode in which Mater does die?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I want it to be Death Valley for thematic reasons.
Mm-hmm. It would be upsetting otherwise.
Yeah, and they almost die, both of them, immediately.
Yeah, they were almost smashed to smithereens by another vehicle that bisected them, that in a way that required them both to actually jump out of the way.
To react to a car that, based on Mater's speed, Mater broke records, they said, so he wasn't going as fast as that, probably, but was probably going upwards of like 500 miles an hour.
Now, here's the thing. Uh, Depending on the vehicle is what the record is.
Yeah,
So he had broken the record for a truck,
that's fair.
or at least his class of truck. Uh, that very well could have been like a dart situation where, oh yeah, those are one of the fastest vehicles ever. It was going well over 1,000 miles per hour.
It's going, like, Mater breaks the sound barrier at one point. He was probably, that car was potentially going faster than the speed of sound, and Lightning and Mater are both able to go, oh, and just sort of get out of the way kind of quickly.
Which, if you're wondering, if he had broken the sound barrier and they were able to dodge out of the way, that means they are able to Matrix like dodge bullets.
Which, I mean, sure, Mater, but Lightning? I don't know.
Well, the thing is, faster than fast is one thing, but they would truly need to be quicker than quick.
True. This all boils down to a major theme I have for this event. Safety's pretty lax, I would say.
Mm-hmm. It is definitely not one of their top concerns or priorities on account of we see a dead body in this episode.
We do.
An eviscerated body that Mater jumps on the situation to, okay, I'm going to replace that one. That husk, I'm going to do what he just did.
Yeah, we do see a car who has met with the speed demon and was not able to talk their way out of it, Mater style.
Not able to match wits quite as well.
Yeah, it's just a smoldering pile of car. Like I wasn't certain that it wasn't a smoldering pile of like car innards.
Mm-hmm.
Being its engine and stuff, not the squishy bit. I knew it wasn't squishy bit, or if it was the whole car. Either way, the joke was, yeah, someone just died doing this.
It's someone just died, and here's their remains.
And here they are. which
when
is
you
not
just look at it.
great.
It's not.
And like we've had cars die on screen before. Like it's nothing new, I guess, but like for them they usually die by like being thrown into the water in Cars 2 or being blown up and then never seen again. It will
Or one person who was crushed to death.
I did just remember that and I was going to compare it to that. It was
Mhm.
most comparable to that, which we always talk about a wild tonal moment.
Yeah,
Uh,
that moment in the kids movie in which they show a dead body that has been mutilated.
which, hey, they said people love Cars 2 so much, let's do it again.
Yep. Cars 2, famously the most well-loved of all of them, which is why we did a complete 180 and went back to the original tone of reverence.
But yeah, there's certainly a dead car. But there are also lots of weird cars, John. And
Mhm.
like, we're certainly going to talk probably more about the Speed Demon, but I feel like just the existence of these cars is our other big subject this episode, yeah?
Yeah, there's a truck that runs on diesel.
Have you heard something like that?
Never, never in my life have I ever heard of a diesel truck, especially not one that my father owned that I didn't know was diesel.
He put normal gas in it. Uh-oh, he ruined it. Maybe.
Yep, that
Yeah,
was rough.
but in all seriousness, there are some weird are there's some weird ones, John, who are like
You mean
they're
the one that
built.
specifically is mentioned as being like manufactured specifically for this?
Yeah,
The whole
that's
thing was he was a car designed for speed,
yeah.
and he's in the same situation as, gonna harp on this, just a diesel truck.
Are you referring? Okay, I feel like I've lost. Are you referring to the fact that Lightning was not the one who did the top speed race, or is there another car?
No, there's a car specifically that they mentioned as, oh, this is a car built for this. Its whole
Hmm.
thing is it's a custom model of, oh, this is a speed car. And then it's like listing out all of the types of cars, and it's like, oh, there's this one, the one that's built for speed, a diesel truck,
Special construction
special construction. That's
is
the
the
one.
category. Okay,
Hmm.
that's that car is Dots Jammin', if you were wondering, because listen, I do keep checking Target every time we do a Target run for Cars on the Road diecasts, and they
Hmm.
always only have either just normal Lightning, normal Mater, but they're the Cars on the Road one, and they have Dots Jammin', which
So do you have Dots jamming is my
I
question.
I don't. He's probably weird enough to have, but like I'm kind of holding out hope that they make the stupid long car, as I think I revealed
Yeah.
in our overview episode. So if I get one of the weird top speed ones, I want it to be weirder than Dots Jammin'. But I may get Dots Jammin' at some point because it's fun to say Dots Jammin'.
And just think about the implication of that. There are cars famous for being fast cars. And then there's Dots Jammin', a special construction vehicle designed to be fast. And he is just, for sure, faster than the fastest of fast and the quickest of quick, Lightning McQueen.
Yeah.
And he's just out there in the wilderness trying to go so fast that he's probably going to die.
Yeah. I think the big conversation point for me with these guys is they modify Mater. Great. They just put a bunch of stuff on top of Mater to make him one of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
But like the rest of them, or at least several of them, the special construction ones for sure, the stupid long car who I love dearly.
The
Uh,
brilliant long card that you love
yes,
deeply.
some of even like the jet cars, like those aren't modifications; those are their being. Like they are not something slapped onto another car. They are just how that car exists in its life.
Mm-hmm. And
So
like brilliant long car, could you imagine being brilliant long car and just trying to go through a drive-through?
I don't think they could.
Yeah, probably not. Whole thing is you got to be pushed anywhere.
Yeah, I don't.
It's like the idea of I heard someone say something, and it was probably in a YouTube video. It was like, who wouldn't want to be, like, who wouldn't want to have the strength to punch a hole in reality just at the tip of your arm or something like that? It's like, oh,
Me, I
I
wouldn't.
wouldn't,
Yeah.
because then I'd have to constantly be trying not to do that.
Yeah, there's an absolutely incredible, one of my favorite Superman moments ever, in the finale of Justice League Unlimited, where he does a big monologue where he talking about how he lives in a world made of cardboard and he always has to hold back, but he doesn't have to against Darkseid, which is like a really really great character moment. But
Hmm.
yes, that's the angst of living like that.
Yeah, it's wait a minute, you're stronger than you've been for, like, why are you punching so light before? Oh, it's because I have to, everything I do, I have to try and do as lightly as possible, because if I don't, the world will shatter beneath me.
Yeah, so like even the ones who aren't made to look very silly, who have this incredible speed and power, like they're not out at the salt flats all the time, I have to guess.
I
Like,
mean, part of me thinks that they might be, because, like, it's the whole, have you ever thought about what it would be like to live as the Flash? And it would be an existential nightmare, because everything is basically standing still forever.
yeah, the Flash can turn it on and off, but the point still stands. The Quicksilver has to exist that way.
And there's
Uh,
a, what's it? There's a scene in Bleach in which someone specifically, like the psychotic mad scientist, he kills someone with a poison, and the poison, when it takes hold, it makes you incapable of moving, and also increases your reaction time to, like, bullet speed.
mm,
So everything is moving extremely slowly, so that you experience death extremely slowly as he slowly slides his blade into you.
that's not good.
And it's just an absolute nightmare imagining living in a world where nothing can ever keep up with you.
Yeah, like even if these folks don't have crazy reaction time, which they probably do, like just the constant like if they are not in self-imposed exile in the salt flats at all times, which they very well might be, like just driving around like 70, 80 miles an hour on the highway must feel like a crawl to them.
Hmm. Or at least, like, that is the minimum they need to, like, have a comfortable walk.
Yeah, yeah. So
And, like, one thing I've been looking at, motorcycles, thinking about what I want out of a motorcycle, and a lot of things are, oh, well, it can get up to this speed or whatnot. But, like, if you want a bike, like one of the bikes I've been looking at, it's like a 125 motor, 125 cc. And a lot of the things are, if you want to go fast, you have to be willing to get too fast slowly.
mm,
Or you could have a lot of kick, which is you can speed up really, really easily, but you don't end up with a top speed that's very high, because it's just gear ratios. And I just keep thinking, I don't want that much kick. I would rather have, like, a top speed of, it took me a few more seconds to get to it, but I can go on New Circle and be fine.
yeah, yeah.
And, like, for a vehicle all about speed, I don't know if what we're looking at are vehicles that have a lot of kick, or just a really high speed, or both. And if it's both, that is the absolute worst of both worlds for a car that wants to live a normal life.
Yeah, the amount of like minute control, like the difference between like my car that goes, let's say, 0 to 100, maybe, of like how much I push on the gas to go from, to increase 10 miles per hour. That is 10% of my car's range.
Mm-hmm.
But these cars that can go maybe 1,000 miles per hour, that would be 1% of their entire range. So the
Mm-hmm.
minute changes, if they live an everyday life outside of the salt flats, would be just crazy amounts of control necessary, and constant vigilance about it too.
Mm-hmm. There are so many things you have to do with just things you don't think are a lot of precise movements, but if you're not careful, you can mess certain things up.
Yeah. So did we ever land on did these cars start their existence like this, like they were quote unquote born, and they were long cars or cars with jets on them or whatever?
See, I think it's important that we talk about the permanence of all of this,
Yeah.
because a custom build, obviously, yes, that's their body. That's the whole thing, is that they're made for this. They are built for speed.
Yeah, because I couldn't decide if it was worse. If I don't know about worse, I couldn't decide which I was the weirder theory in my head, is if these beings just came into life and were like this, or if someone like Maru from Planes made them better than new, quote unquote, and they were weird Franken beings. Because
Well, here's one interesting thing about the whole Maru comparison. When he makes someone better than new, it's it doesn't change them. It just actually makes them better,
yeah,
which is nonsense because that's not how his Frankensteinian machinations would work. If he were to actually have increased his speed, he would have to have physically changed him. But from what I can tell, he just welded his engine back together.
yeah, yeah. So I think most of them just were born the way they were, which good for them. I hope. I don't know. We have very little knowledge of how cars genetics and being born and manufactured work, but I hope they had a supportive family,
Mm-hmm.
supportive upbringing, and they were able to find this outlet relatively easily and quick, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it would be very hard for them not to find it quickly.
Yeah, they probably do everything pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the whole if you look at the science behind Michael Phelps's body,
Yeah,
he was designed for swimming.
yeah, yeah,
Even
yeah.
if he wasn't actually designed, he has a body that is all of the things that you want out of a swimmer.
Yeah, his lung capacity is crazy. His wingspan is wild. I think his lactic acid has something different about it that makes him get tired less. It's
Yeah, lactic acid buildup is strange because there's a man, we've probably talked about him before.
think so.
His whole thing is his lactic acid doesn't build up, which means he can essentially, well, not run forever, but run forever when compared to the next guy.
Yeah, wild. But let's talk about Mater's makeover. Mateover. Sure. Mater's
And
makeover.
the thing that I wanted to talk about earlier was the permanence of everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Why is it that they clearly had welding equipment and they didn't use it?
Yeah, I was going to talk about the shoddy workmanship
Mm-hmm.
on Mater, because,
All those bolts and pins just came flying out. And
yeah.
why would they have that blowtorch just to threaten the race car?
Yeah, because, the big thing that tells me how shoddy the workmanship is when Mater goes way, way too fast and he falls apart, none of original Mater flies off.
Yeah.
All of original Mater is cool, but all of the stuff they added to him is this is bad. We can't be here anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing you, audience. Yes, I get it. God King Mater.
Yeah,
He's too powerful to actually fall apart.
sure.
And he's so powerful even that you can't even weld onto him. But if we're talking just he is a truck,
Yeah,
he is not built for that. And they specifically tried to build him for that. And the thing that fell apart wasn't the body not built to handle these speeds. It was the body parts that were designed for these speeds.
Yeah, and like they did some things to make Mater more aerodynamic, but not like a lot of things, I
Mm-hmm.
would say. Like if you look at him, that's still a shape not built for speed, and I understand they wanted to keep Mater A recognizable to the audience, and B in universe like it was a quick job and everything, but like I don't know, it doesn't seem like it was good either from a design standpoint or from a work actually done standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything's all about speed. But if you want speed, you gotta you gotta put in some work. You can't just slap some stuff together and make it go fast. If and like, yeah, obviously they don't care about the survivability.
Clearly.
But like, if your whole thing is you want to go fast and faster and faster, then why wouldn't you, do a good job?
Yep. Seems like a pretty simple charge to me. Okay. I have one tiny other note, and then I think we should dive into the speed demon.
Mm-hmm.
It's the tiniest thing in the world. But there is a shot while Mater's going very, very fast, uh, where he passes one of like the speed detectors, and it cuts to a car up in a tower who says 400 miles an hour or whatever she says. And it doesn't matter, but they didn't build any explanation for how that car would get up and down from the tower. It's just, it's built barely bigger than the car. There's no ramp up to it. It's just a tower and there's a car up there. So, unless that car just lives up there, which maybe they do,
Now,
what's up?
Lucas, we do have a reasonable answer for this.
Yeah,
It is unfortunate, but there's a very strong chance that there was a platform built for them to get up there, and it just fell apart.
like a lot of these other builds seem to. Yeah, my other explanation was they just built it around her and
Mm-hmm.
lifted her up, and they'll deconstruct it when they're done for the day, was my other thought. Or
Yep.
when they're done for the week, maybe even.
Mm-hmm. Or
Uh,
maybe they're never going to be done, and then that car will die and just be replaced.
she knew what she signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to mention that because it was my headboards of this episode. It bothered me more than it should.
Okay.
But yeah, now it's time to talk about Mater dying. I'd say yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Mater goes so fast that he dies. And what do I mean? How could I possibly mean what I just said? He just goes so fast that he dies? Well, acceleration can do a lot to the human body or to the biological body of any sort. Uh, what do what evidence do I have that he died from acceleration?
Well, he doesn't crash before he meets the speed demon. He is
Exactly.
mid-air.
He dies without hitting anything. And a lot of people like saying this sort of thing. It's not the speed that kills you, it's the sudden stop that kills you. Except that's not what happened with Mater. He just went so fast that his body tore itself apart, and I think internally it also tore itself apart.
Yeah, like I think I think an interpretation, and probably the interpretation they were going for,
Is
is
he was
Mater.
going to crash?
Yeah, Mater met the speed demon in the moment before his death. But I mean, why would you meet the Grim Reaper right before you died?
Mm-hmm. A lot of people like purport seeing the Grim Reaper or something like the light at the end of the tunnel before they die, and then they can pull back. And maybe that's what they're going for. But the problem is the speed demon is talking about how they can't let one slip through, meaning that you can't go back, all this stuff. Mater is dead. Mater isn't about to die.
Yeah,
Mater is dead. And if that's the case, then that means that straight up the speed, or even if you want to say the sudden deceleration, is why, or negative acceleration if you're my physics professor, uh, that's what killed him, because he suddenly doesn't have the thing propelling him forward. So all he's got is air resistance. And just that, at that point, it's like if you fall from a great height, water is no longer going to slow you down in a way that is conducive to survival. At a
Yeah,
certain point, you are so far up that when you hit the water, you're not hitting what you would think of as water. It's more like concrete.
yeah. We've all watched Mythbusters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was going to say like that was my thought. Like he slows down so suddenly that how a concussion happens. You're going forward and you suddenly stop. You get hit in the head. Your brain keeps going forward and hits the inside of your skull.
Mm-hmm. That's how
Uh,
concussion work.
and like when all of you is kind of brain squishy bit, that's probably not good.
Mm-hmm. All of your body is just attached to this suit of armor that helps you move. And then all of a sudden, all of the connections are strained to their max. Now, there are certain things we can get into about this whole thing, but let's start with one thing, that is, if Mater's soul was detached and
Which
was
it
talking to the
was.
speed demon, and that is the case because we even got a quote before all of this saying that inside of the chassis is where the soul is, and it's the soul of the last person who was in the vehicle, yada yada. This is some weird actual things that were said. But you can't put a soul in a body that is ravaged and the person come back to life. That is a rule, like, number one rule of necromancy is that you can't bring someone back to life by putting the soul in the body if the body can't sustain life anymore.
Yeah.
So something is not right with this situation. Say what you will about what we've already discussed. It must have been a premature visit from the Grim Reaper
Which
because his
I
body sustains him afterwards.
yeah, which I would argue Mater still died from the very act of the Grim Reaper, like taking his soul out of his body.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Speed Demon. We should call them by their name, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And they're not very grim.
yeah, they're not. They're kind of pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that the Speed Demon came and Mater's soul was out of his body, like that'll probably kill you, right?
Mm-hmm. I feel like that is a way to define death.
Yeah.
Is your soul leaving your body. The thing about all that is, sure, it could be premature or maybe all this, that, and the other. What if Mater actually went faster than fast?
Mm.
What if he didn't die? What if he went so fast that he actually was ascending?
Okay, sort of like a natural law of the universe kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like he broke the sound barrier and then the something else barrier.
He became the Speed Force.
Yes.
This is his Barry Allen moment.
Run, Mater, run, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could dig that. I like the idea that just going a certain speed, like man was not meant to do this, or car was not meant to do this, and it's just sort of a supernatural law of the universe
Mm-hmm.
that gets you an automatic visit from the speed demon.
All right, you've done it. I died? No, you just went too fast.
Which, yeah, you did kind of die. Like, it's
It's
similar.
it's the same thing, but with extra steps, and also, I guess, better.
I guess. You want to talk about the speed demon themselves?
Okay, so I don't know why I want to talk about this, but when you try to describe someone who is of an advanced age,
Mm-hmm.
you sometimes will call them an old person, and that seems rude, so you don't want to call them that. And then you want to say they're an older person, as if somehow that's not worse.
Yeah.
Because, like, you say an older person when you're trying to be polite about calling someone old. And it's just bizarre to me that that's even like a thing that people feel like doing, because that seems like it's old, older, oldest. That's the way that progression works. You're calling them older than old, just like faster than fast. And like I was trying to describe the speed demons characterization, and they seem to be an older person. I
Yeah.
don't want to say they're an old person because that seems rude, but saying older seems worse.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with like old, like an old person defines them by that, and an older, like you're not saying they're older than old, you're saying they're older than average is
Hmm.
kind of the implication there. But I get the semantic argument you're making.
Yeah, like I guess the problem is that old becomes a noun,
Yeah.
so you are describing them as being an old
Yes.
rather than describing them as being a person who happens to be old.
Yeah, I think the idea is it sort of reduces in a way.
Hmm.
Not I don't even know if I necessarily agree with that, but I think that's the colloquial, the sort of cultural viewpoint on it.
Hmm.
But yeah, there is this the speed demon just seems to be like a nice older lady,
Hmm.
kind of.
Who just casually, like, yep, well, you're dead. Except she doesn't even want to say that because that's scary. So she's like, haha, yeah, I don't really look like a demon, but that's what they call me. And I guess if that's what they're going to call me, I'm going to tell you that's the thing that you might find familiar.
Yeah, she's very much she's gentle with Mater. I would say
Mm-hmm.
she says like, no, it's come on, it doesn't work that way. Like, she does say uh, in a line I enjoy, like, "What are you doing out here, Mater?"
Mater, you can't be going faster than fast. You're not built for that.
And in a line exchange I like even more, which I'll mark as my highlight of the episode, is her exchange of, "Well, I never thought you'd go out like this," and Mater saying what I was exactly thinking, which was, "No, this seems about right."
Yeah, yeah. And it rings back to that a little bit near the end when it's like, yeah, this should be mostly avoided. And I'm just thinking, you you learned your lesson, I guess, and your lesson was once or twice is fine.
Which I mean, clearly it was.
Yeah, the whole thing, the whole exchange is that's not how this works, and clearly it is how it works.
Yeah, because
He matched wits with Death, and Death lost.
yeah, but there is something comforting knowing that in the Cars verse, Death is kind and gentle. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like there, that's a is a nice representation of the concept of death.
Yep.
And I didn't. I'll be the first to say it, John. I didn't expect there to be a conceptualized version of death in the Cars on the Road series, but I am happy with the version they gave us.
Yep. The one we got, it's not the one we asked for, but we can be happy with it.
Yeah, those wings. I think I commented on this at some other point. They just don't seem like they would do anything. They're
Yeah,
based on their placement.
there's a lot to be said, but like a larger thing needs larger wings. Those wings are not large enough, and if their wings aren't large enough, you need to be able to flap a lot, and they certainly don't. They flap, but they don't flap nearly as much as they would need to, especially seeing as how they seem to also be made of metal.
Yeah, and like even if they are uh, producing enough lift, based on the placement of the wings, I don't think that car should be hanging like that. I think they should be pretty much facing close to the ground.
Hmm. Facing downward completely.
Yeah. And obviously that's not the point. It's a supernatural being. It has wings because it makes it look cool.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think we can say that without making it sound like, oh, we're just saying it's a kids movie. No, the the supernatural being can decide it wants to have wings, because that would be cool if it wants.
Hmm. If I were a supernatural being, I would probably have wings at least some of the time.
For sure. For sure.
Hmm.
Okay. I don't know if I'm reading into this, because I guess
More evidence of Mater's power coming from death,
well, one, yes, but
which leads me to believe Mater is dead because Mater's first instinct is, I can fool death, so clearly Mater's done this before.
yeah, it gives a lot of credence also to Mater as a trickster god, which we
Hmm.
often get into. If he's not a god king, then he's a Loki like figure. And I think that this Mater immediately, like, it is a classic thing that you can challenge the Grim Reaper to a game.
Hmm.
And if you win, you get to stay, and nobody ever wins, is the twist.
Hmm.
The Grim Reaper's incredible at everything. Uh, but like the fact that Mater had knowledge of that and then tricked Death, like, yeah, that's some trickster god stuff. But and I do want to get into Mater drawing power from Death, and but I want to talk about whether you think this was the Grim Reaper or a Grim Reaper.
I think that this is a Grim Reaper based on a few pieces of anecdotal evidence, one of which is that the local lore
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up too.
and also the speed demon. I think that this is a Grim Reaper either associated with this area or with dying due to speed, which it could even be both.
Hmm.
It's a death related to going too fast or stopping too quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Which I think I think that evidence is pretty strong that
Hmm.
this is a specific figure, but then that makes the exchange where the speed demon is immediately familiar with Mater ring a little odd to me.
Well,
Uh,
once Mater went so fast, uh, that turned him into a being of speed,
sure.
which is why the Grim Reaper of Speed is able to immediately know his entire life,
Yeah,
because you are now in the realm of the Speed Demon.
yeah, which like we could also just explain it away, be like, all of them are omnipotent. They're,
Hmm.
why wouldn't they be? Uh, but I that there was something about uh if it wasn't just an omnipotence, if we want to do some God King Mater stuff, the speed demon being immediately familiar with Mater, I think rings well for that, is what I was getting to.
Especially seeing as how I didn't think this is how you would go out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Meaning, I've thought about this before. I assumed you would die because of a different, somewhat deific figure just getting fed up with you and your shenanigans. Like, I don't know, Thor being mad that you gave out lightning powers to lightning.
Yeah, that would be an appropriate way for Mater to die.
Hmm.
But I had something. I had it. So I need you to have something instead.
All right, but the familiarity with the situation that Mater has
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
uncomfortable. The familiarity specifically with the speed demon, not through knowledge, because obviously Mater doesn't know this person or isn't aware of knowing this person,
Good way to
uh,
put it.
but the reverse of this being familiar enough to have this sort of conversation. And sure, death is going to know who it's supposed to be going to. It's like you study up on the person you're collecting right before you collect them.
Sure.
But the familiarity there and then the willingness to let this one go
Yeah.
really speaks to, okay, we know each other. We're friends enough that I'm going to let this one slide. It's
Or
like, and just to show unfortunate amount of white privilege, if you know the cop and you're friends with them, then you get pulled over and they're like, okay, just slow down. is a nice thing that sometimes happens in smaller communities.
Or on another reading of it could be that the speed demon knew of Mater and knew how powerful Mater was, and was like, listen, I'm not going to fight this too hard. I don't want you to be doing some weird stuff. To continue your metaphor, instead of the cop pulling over a friend, the cop pulling over like the police chief
Mhm.
or the
The
mayor or
mayor.
something.
Yeah.
Or maybe just another cop,
Hmm.
maybe they're on more equal ground.
Yeah, man, that's what messes me up so bad is probably shouldn't just talk about that sort of thing a lot because there's no good way to talk about it. But the brotherhood aspect of policing really frustrates me. Is like,
Yeah,
oh, you can't rat on another cop who's done something bad because we're brothers. No, it's because we're brothers that I have to, because no one else has any amount of power to do this.
hmm
So it's our responsibility to rat on each other,
yeah, yeah.
which is, of course, my argument for why Mater needs to have been killed.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's my argument at the end of every movie we watch, every episode. Uh,
The disappointment we feel every time Mater doesn't pay for his actions.
Someone's got to stop this man.
Hmm. He
Yeah,
laughs at the face of death.
I think maybe literally at some point.
Hmm.
Uh, but John, we've been dancing around it.
His body opens up and then he just goes inside of himself.
Yeah, they opened a car door, which, if you were to ask me before this came out, like for a list of things that they will never do in the Cars verse, I think opening a car door would have been on my list.
See, I want to say that, but I feel like this is a situation where it could easily have gone either way. Admittedly, this is a weird situation I wouldn't have predicted, but what I would have predicted is that, of course, they will open a car door at some point, and it's just going to be so they can like press a button or something. It's just going to be the most casual usage of something that they should never do, and it's going to be basically, oh, we did it because it would be convenient and I guess mildly amusing,
Sure.
and never think of the repercussions.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And
And
like,
instead, they chose to think about the repercussions and decide, yeah, we're going to make a hard stance on that's where the soul be at.
yeah, like they made they found the one situation where I was like, no, in this situation, I think they would open the door.
Hmm. And even worse, we've been told this before, that that's where the brain is, or that's where the mind or the soul is. They've made statements like that before.
Yeah,
So we should have seen it coming. We
yeah,
should have seen Mater's death coming, is what I'm saying.
and yeah, for all our begging for it, we never saw it coming,
Hmm.
and that's on us. But yeah, you're talking about the little behind the scenes things. McQueen doesn't have hands, where I
Hmm.
think one of the people say, "Well, we can't have him open the door because his brain's in there," and they just drop it so casually. They just
Yeah,
drop it so casually.
it's those two, and of course it's the last person who was in the car.
Yeah, which that one was way early, and one guy said that, but like,
Hmm.
still, we're latching onto it. They can't say it and work at Pixar is the thing.
Yeah. So
But yeah,
Mater died, and then he didn't die, and immediately after, it's so frustrating because what happens is Mater dies. He sees and meets and speaks with death. He tricks death. Then he gets back into his body. And then what's the first conversation he has? Oh, you were worried about me. You shouldn't have been worried about me. Obviously, I'm fine. No, Mater, you died.
Mater, you broke the sound barrier and then began to crash at that speed. Like, even if Lightning has no idea about the rest of it, like, yeah, man, it was worrying.
Mm-hmm. On account of you did die. Whether or not anyone else knows it, You know it. You know that you died.
And the fact that Mater isn't a changed man by this is maybe the strongest evidence for God King Mater we've had. The
Yeah, and it's so frustrating the way they point out that he hasn't changed because the whole thing is, oh yeah, that last statement he makes, it should be mostly avoided, meaning that he doesn't even think it was a bad decision.
yeah. Yeah. It's wild that they had Mater die in this one.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when Mater died in this one?
Yeah, it was in this one.
It was in this one, wasn't it?
This one was the one in which he died.
Oh god. I have one more note. I actually have two more notes that are kind of going down from what we were talking about, but that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. One is Seance's confirmed work in this universe because death itself, when Mater's like, I would like to say goodbye to Lightning, is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what about a seance? So, and we
And
did
one of
know.
the most grim things that is said the entire time is, who's gonna tell Lightning? He'll figure it out. Yeah, when your body is mangled beyond repair, he'll find your dead body and he'll figure out that you're dead.
Yeah, that one felt like an understatement to me. I was like, yeah, he'll figure it out real quick. I gotta imagine.
When he watches everything explode.
But yeah, it's not that big of a thing that Seance's confirmed work when last episode was the ghost episode,
Mm-hmm.
but a fun little bit of lore for the Cars verse. And the last thing I want to talk about, and of course we're saving the biggest thing to end on.
Mm-hmm.
Holding up tires makes no sense. How many tires am I holding up? How? No. Like, how would you
Well,
do?
here's the problem. She was going to answer either 4 or 6 because if you're holding up your tires, you're holding up all of your tires. You can even like angle one up, and I'm guessing it just all of them still count as being held up.
That's what I want to get into. I want to break this down, John.
How many
'Cause,
of my tires are flat?
like, you can hold up one. They do that kind of because they like. It was like when Mater like bumped tires with Lightning at the beginning. Like, you can do that, but like any more than one at a time, like one quadrant at a time, a car couldn't do that.
Well, pop a wheelie.
Sure, I guess, but then that gives your person a hint, seeing as you're running and like moving around. But even then, the answer is two quadrants are up. Like, you can't. It's one or two.
You can basically hear the answer for one of those answers. So, yeah, it's an all or nothing situation, I guess. And yeah, he was just doing a whole thing where it doesn't matter what the answer is, I'm just sneaking away and cackling.
Yeah, but he shouldn't have the concept of it, is what I'm saying. Like, no one should have ever thought to do that because they would think to do it and then go, no, they'd figure it out. It would be one or two. Maybe if I like rock backwards, I could
Mhm.
do two, but I don't even know about that.
And this does really poke a hole in our familiarity with Mater's statements because the Speed Demon does have to question, wait, you have 4 tires, right? Or do you have 6? And Lucas, what's the answer? Don't look it up.
He has six, but I went through the exact same thing because I
Yeah.
went four and then I went, wait, does he have six? Oh my god, he does, doesn't he?
He
Wait, does
does.
he though? Am I making that up?
He does.
Yeah, which, hey, we shouldn't have to learn that, but we did.
Mm-hmm. And we did that for you.
And that's in episode 130. I don't know what number this one is. I'm going to say 135.
Sounds right to me. I think 33 was 2 episodes ago.
Hell yeah. I'm great at this, actually. Never mind. Well, I guess the only thing left to do is rank it like we've been doing. We do, just as a refresher, we do a ranking based on how much lore it imparts into the larger Cars verse, and then a ranking for just how much we liked it, sort of divorced from our roles as Cars casters, if you will. So I guess I'll start. This one's pretty easy, John. lore-wise, I'd say. Because Mater died, and his soul left his body, and he talked to the Grim Reaper for a while. So this one I feel like is an easy 10, lore-wise.
Yes.
Yeah. And, like, there was even other stuff that was kind of crazy in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Mater hadn't died, it would have still been, like, a 4. Just based
I
on...
would say maybe more than a 4, just because there's the real long one.
The real long one, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, the real long one bumps it up to at least a 6 without Mater death.
Mm-hmm.
But Mater death puts it to an easy 10. I think
Mm-hmm.
we can both agree on that.
Yeah.
How much would you give it just on how much you liked it?
I'm probably going to say it's my favorite, but that's probably colored by the fact that I do a podcast about cars, and it was fun to watch Mater die.
Yeah. This one, I was going to bring up a similar thing. I can't really divorce the fact that I do a Cars podcast from this one. And even if I didn't, I would be losing my mind about Mater dying anyway. Like,
yeah.
So, I'm not going to give it a perfect 10. Because, like, none of them are, like, phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Just being honest. But I'll give it, like, an 8. Sure.
Yeah, probably a 7.
Sure. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, it was... Mater died in this one. That's pretty great.
The thing you gotta remember about this one, John, is Mater did die in it. I think I made that same joke when we were recording this episode the first time.
Yes. Wait, what? What do you mean the first time?
Too late! Future Lucas, edit it out!
Oh boy. So yeah, that's it for this week, folks. The one in which Mater died.
He died in this one is the important... If we can impress one thing about this episode, is Mater died in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening. We do appreciate it so much. Like I said, we're going to be recording episode 4, The Legend, before this one comes out. So don't send us your thoughts about that. We've already recorded that episode. But if you want to send us your thoughts on episode 5, which is, I think, the circus one, does that sound right to you, John?
That does sound right to me. No, it doesn't. What's the next episode? I'm thinking it's the Bigfoot episode.
Next episode is Bigfoot, then after that is circus.
Yeah.
But don't send us Bigfoot thoughts. We have already recorded that by the time you've listened to this. Send us circus and clown thoughts. That's what we need. Or
specifically, if you want to go for like clowns from outer space, that's good, because these clowns have magical powers and are somehow for sure evil.
Oh, for sure. But just to walk back the statement I just said, you could also just send us your thoughts on any of the episodes at any point.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you got a thought about the dinosaurs, like last episode we did a thought about the dinosaurs from Rob. Send us everything. Send us your breakfast order, but don't. And you cannot send us your breakfast order at our Twitter account, which is @thekachat. You can either tweet at us or DM us, and while you're there, give us a follow. Or you can email us. Our email account is thekachat@gmail.com. There isn't a hyphen in either of those, believe it or not, but you should believe it because it's true. Now, John says his part of the outro.
Remember to like, comment, subscribe, tell anyone and everyone you think might be the least bit interested in this kooky, quirky, strange little podcast. And until next time, remember to float like a Cadillac
and sting like a Beamer.
Time